Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Melrose Unitarian Universalist Church. The UA theme of this month is justice and equity, and we'll be exploring that theme today with a sermon I have titled Thinking About Social Justice and Spirituality, or Social Justice Through a Spiritual Lens, or Do Unto Others, or Spiritual Social justice, or, well, social justice and equity. My name is Reverend Susan Sahusky Brown. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And the rest of the worship team, lay leaders, and staff choose to share our pronouns because we feel it important that people of all genders know that they are loved and welcome here. I am glad that you could be here this morning. There are a number of other places that you could have been, but you chose to come here, and I am delighted about that. I am with you while Reverend Suzanne is on her well-earned sabbatical. She'll return April early. So welcome. We are a church of open minds, loving hearts, helping hands. All who share our values are welcome here with us. And now let us greet one another with our weekly practice. I invite you to say hello to the person behind you, beside you, near you. Say hello. And then wave hi to all our friends, near and far away. We have some helpers this morning. We have our coffee host, Paul Belfonte and Michelle DeVoe. Our usher is Michael O'Connor, and our greeter, Nancy Nichols. And there will be an important and an informative gathering following fellowship time to have some preliminary discussion about the budget for the next fiscal year. Now, if you have ever wanted to know how to put your mission and vision into practice, I need to tell you that budgeting is how you have it happen. So I encourage you to come to that meeting and listen and talk about the things that are important to this congregation, because that giving and the way that you support and think about vision, mission, does enact itself in the finances. And we have a couple other announcements this morning. Do we? Yes. Yeah, Wendy, thank you.
Boston, the first weekend we call for our program called City Beach again, and so I have clothing line for that. Jane put a box right here in the foyer, and there's a list of type of items. During the week, the box will go outside the office in the hallway.
Thank you. All right. I have turned to the words of my colleague, the Reverend Mark Morrison Reed, for opening words, in which he reminds us the task of the religious community. The central task of the religious community is to unveil the bonds that bind each to all. There is a connectedness, a relationship discovered amid the particulars of our own lives and the lives of others. Once felt, it inspires us to act for justice. It is the church that assures us that we are not struggling for justice on our own, but are members of a larger community. The religious community is essential for our loan. Our vision is too narrow to see all that must be seen, and our strength is too limited to do all that must be done. But together, our vision widens and our strength is renewed. And now we will light the symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith, the flaming chalice. And to join us this morning and lead us in our covenant is Karen. Thank you.
I invite you to stand and rise in body or in spirit, and join me in the words of the covenant, which you can see on the screen. Love is the doctrine of this church, the quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humankind in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. This is our great covenant, one with another and with our God.
Please remain standing if you would, and our opening hymn is 361. Here we have gathered. 360. Thank you, 360. And I would invite Barbara up to share our story for all ages. Yes, wherever you're comfortable.
Hello? Okay. So our story today is Sometimes People March by Tessa Allen. Sometimes ants march. Sometimes bands march. Sometimes people march. Marching is something people do together when they want to resist injustice, or when they notice a need for change. People march for many reasons. People march for things they care about and people they love. People march for the health of their bodies and their communities and the world. People march for freedom, for love, and live and learn. For the freedom to love and live and learn. Sometimes people carry signs to share their stories of resistance. People resist in many ways. They might resist with words or songs or art. People resist with meetings. They resist by standing up or sitting down or taking a knee. It isn't always easy. Feet get tired, arms get tired, hearts and hopes get tired. Sometimes problems seem too big or complex. But we do not march alone. Ants are stronger together. Bands are louder together. People are more powerful together. Sometimes from feelings or fear or anger or injustice comes the hope for change. Sometimes great change starts small with a brave question. Maybe your question, a question that calls people together. And together we find the courage to march. Thank you, everyone, for your good listening. And now, I think Zura and Scarlett and Mary and I are going to go downstairs. And anybody else who wants to come down to RE.
At the center of our service, every Sunday, we create together a time of quiet, a moment for prayer and meditation, or a chance to reconnect with our inner selves, those highest ideals, our sense of the holy, whatever it is that we conceive of that gives us strength and support. And I would invite you to begin this time by closing your eyes if you're comfortable and breathing deeply. Breathe in and breathe out and feel your feet on the floor and breathe in and out as you feel your body relaxing and sinking into the seat. We're going to join together in our centering song, Comfort Me, and then we will sit for a few moments of shared quiet, and then we will speak to one another of our joys and sorrows. Breathe in and out, and now join together and comfort me. to share times of sorrow and of joys, the milestones of our lives, our personal joys and sorrows. We speak and we listen with care so that our sharing may knit us together in love and in strength and community. If you have any sorrow to share, please type it into the chat box now, and I will read it aloud after anyone in the sanctuary has shared. I don't see any joys from our people far away, but I want to thank you all for sharing your joys and your sorrows. Each expression of joy or sorrow or concern helps to knit this community together in love and connection that demonstrates deep care, compassion for one another, and a safe place to come and know that you are never alone. You do not need to leave here carrying any concern with you. Find someone to express it to. And a joy shared makes all of us smile. Thank you.
Now is the time for our offertory. Our church is a self-supporting organization funded by your generous annual pledge. You may also contribute to our weekly collection plate, which we split every month with a deserving cause. Folks on Zoom can donate either way using the orange button at the top right corner of our homepage at melroseuu.org. For the month of February, this church will be giving half of our collection plate to the Immigrant Support Alliance. The Immigrant Support Alliance, an outgrowth of this congregation's former immigration ministry, is a nonprofit coalition of volunteers that partners with resettlement agencies to provide food, housing, financial, and social support to its clients, helping them on their journey towards becoming independent, contributing members of our communities. Today's anthem is called Hold Fast to Dreams. The text is by Langston Hughes and the music by Susan Labar.
Life is a barren field.
that cannot fly.
Thank you, choir. And Tom. The reading I chose this morning is from the Christian Century magazine, a monthly periodical that I've been reading since my seminary days. Not because I consider myself Christian, but because it contains current information of an interfaith nature and continues to be informative in my ministry. And if I may brag just a little, and tell you that they published an essay of mine on the topic of a bell. It is an honor, not so much for the publication, for a free year of the Christian Century and a $100 check. But as a Unitarian Universalist, to get published in that magazine is a little bit of a kick. Anyway, the reading I share this week is from the theologian Richard Rohr in his book, Everything Belongs. He writes about the dangers of living too much on the circumference, on the surface of our existence. He writes, "We are a circumference people with little access to the center. We live on the boundaries of our own lives, confusing edges with essence, too quickly claiming the superficial as substance." Rohr goes on to explain that the circumference of our lives aren't in and of themselves bad. We don't need to moralize and stand in judgment of them. And yet, if we stay at the circumference, we get stuck there. And we never encounter the deeper realities of suffering and joy and pain and love. And in my message, I hope to bring us deeper into understanding about social justice transformation and the ways that it will bring us into the realities therein. So I want to begin with this quote from Robert Bellah. His popularity was pretty strong in the 80s and 90s, though I don't think the ideas he expressed will ever really go out of favor. He is a sociologist, and I turn to him often when I, as a minister, wonder, what is the future of our churches? What is the meaning of our spiritual beingness? And can we find being, living and being in the world? And how can our churches remain relevant? Generosity of the Spirit, he says, is the ability to acknowledge an interconnectedness, one's debts to society that binds one to others, whether one wants to accept that or not. It is also the ability to engage in caring that nurtures that interconnectedness. It is a virtue, he writes, that everyone should strive for, even though few people have a lot of it. A virtue, the practice of which gives meaning to the frustrations of political work and the inevitable loneliness of the separate self. It is a virtue that leads us into community work and is sustained by such involvements. This is from Habits of the Heart. So interconnectedness and relationships are the two key phrases that I took out of this, and they really are keystones of our religious principles. It is true we Unitarian Universalists have a long history of following the golden rule, that of doing others unto others and for others, as we would have done to ourselves, and for deeply caring about society in which we live and move, and most importantly, in which we desire to bring up and nurture children. Most every act of service done by Unitarian Universalists was done, as Robert Bellah wrote, to acknowledge an interconnectedness, one's debt to societies that binds one to others. And that desire to be involved and engaged in social justice remains a high value in Unitarian Universalism. And he's reminding us that through doing good, that is a virtue we can cultivate, it is also important for our spiritual well-being. He talks about the frustrations of political work, and those of us who have been involved in social justice projects know only too well the political nature of the work. Nod if you agree. And those who have labored in the political system know too well the frustrations involved. Nod if you agree. Right. Yet, without cultivating the virtue of doing good to and for others, we are subject to, as Bellah so aptly states, the inevitable loneliness of the separate self. He is saying that isolationism and lack of involvement is a social, personal, spiritual problem. And when we isolate or when we see ourselves as removed from others, loneliness is prevalent. Of course, one of Bellah's premises is that people are losing their connections to and with others, and that voluntary associations, which were the backbone of the founding of our country, are not as strong or viable as they once were. I think you might agree with his concerns. Think about those volunteer organizations you are a part of, not necessarily church, but others. Boy Scouts have a hard time getting den leaders. Girl Scouts have a hard time getting leaders. His theory is talked about in bowling leagues, the loss of bowling leagues. That's where he kind of came to his thinking about it. But volunteer organizations, they have a dwindling number of people who join, who commit to doing the work, who stay connected through thick and thin. And that presents a problem for us and an opportunity as Unitarian Universalists, because we have 4 experiences of social responsibility that are ways to be engaged and develop the virtue of doing good unto others, and of reducing loneliness and of building interconnections that'll bring spiritual meaning back into our lives. Let's do a quick tour through those 4 ways to express social responsibility. The first, social action. It's a process of organizing in an attempt to correct the situations which are part of the problem. And an example would be bagging food for the food insecure. And you were talking about the food and clothing that you're gathering right now. That's a social action example. Social education is the process of informing yourself or others about a particular concern. This would be joining a book club, a discussion group, or putting out pamphlets to share information. Social witness or social justice is the process of publicly expressing your convictions about a particular issue. Some people march, as our story said, with hopes that others might join you. This would be marching for a cause. I understand that you used to do the Mother's Day march against gun violence. Okay. Writing to your state representative, sitting on a board that can make decisions that can affect the course, policies, and decisions. I'll give you a couple examples from my life. I serve on the board of Spectrum Incorporated, which is an alcohol drug treatment agency that serves addicts and their families. I also serve on the board of what's called Growing Places, which serves the food insecure in the central Massachusetts area. And on each of these boards, I get to make policy decisions. I get to make decisions financially, policy, resources that help make a difference, that transform. I was also the first chair of the UUA's Journey Toward Wholeness Transformation Committee back in the 90s. And our task was to transform the UUA into an anti-racist, anti-oppressive, multicultural institution. And we did this by looking at bylaws, principles, purposes, resources, policies, history, and culture. And I like to think that we helped set the way for where we're going now in the UUA with its anti-racism, anti-oppression work. And then social service is the process of doing something direct and immediate to assist others. From my own experiences, I am on the Unitarian Universalist Trauma Response Ministry and the Massachusetts Corps of Fire Chaplains, both of which offer me the opportunity to assist people with their immediate needs. On Friday, I was invited to the Mass Firefighting Academy and Department of Fire Services to give a blessing to the employees who years of work there totaled over 500 years with all the people who had labored and worked there. And I was able to bring a blessing to them in which I said, what you are doing is blessing the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and beyond with your care and commitment to helping firefighters and emergency responders be the best that they can be. And you are a blessing. Well, I want to talk a little bit about voluntary associations as the backbone of founding of our country and tie that into a long-standing tradition of Unitarian and Universalist involvement, working together to make a difference of the world. I'm going to share an example with you, and I'm going to unpack a little bit why it failed. The philosophy based on voluntary commitment to one another and to building a better world was manifest in the vision of coming together to build utopian communities. Now, Unitarians were more inclined to become the eager founder of utopian communities. The Universalists tended to be far more practical and realistic about life in general. And there have been a couple of utopian communities located in Massachusetts. Fruitlands in Harvard, Mass. was started by Louisa May Alcott's father, Amos Bronson Alcott. But Brook Farm is the one that I want to talk about today, in part because my colleague has written such good research about it, and because it is a good example of a utopian community ideals and why it failed. Reverend Nanine Gowdy, in her sermon, Success from Failure, the Brook Farm Story, writes, "Dreams of a better way of living are easy, but reality often sets in." So let's look at both the success and some of those feelings. The Unitarian minister, George Ripley, was a visionary, and he and his wife, Sophia, were the money behind Brook Farm. That was in Newberry, in right here, where was it? It was in West Newton, West Roxbury, sorry. He had an idea to establish a community based on that early Christian model dedicated to justice, equality, and good deeds. And the idea for Brook Farm, the Fruitlands community, Aden Ballew's Hopedale community, and the Northampton Association grew out of a convention on religious freedom held in Groton, Mass. Around 1841. That's where the germs, this idea came. But after that convention, Ripley decided to put some money to it. He and his spouse, Sophia, sold $11,000 worth of their stock, 1841, They sold $11,000 of their stock to buy 200 acres of land in West Roxbury. Now, the purpose was to form a community dedicated to the abolition of slavery, to provide equal education and economic opportunities for all, and to end wage slavery and domestic servitude. Those very lofty ideals were to be lived out in a community where everyone could jointly purchase stock and contribute. Unfortunately, many people, over 100, signed up to purchase, and they even lived on the land. But from over that 100 people, only 15 ever paid. Ripley was a visionary, not a very good business person. And anyone who has ever farmed needs know there are some things for a farm to succeed. Workers willing to do the multiple chores. Some most unpleasant and most important is that land must be suitable. Unfortunately, with Brook Farm, the land was not suitable for farming, and the way that work was determined was strictly by personal choice. You did only what you wanted to do. If you got bored with one job, you could switch to another, as staying interested was deemed crucial. Chores were strictly determined by your choice. Now I ask, how many of you would choose mucking out stalls, slaughtering animals, plucking feathers, peeling potatoes for 200 people, or cleaning the outdoor privies? Any volunteers? And at Brook Farm, only one person who lived there had any experience with farming. This wouldn't bode well for assuring success in a utopian community wholly dependent upon raising its own food. Reverend Nanine writes that the value put on not becoming bored was so high that reading stands were attached to every ironing board so that people could read as they ironed. Do you remember what irons might have been like in the 1840s? Right, they were heavy. They were heated on metal stoves, and they needed careful attention to both handling to avoid burning fingers and shirts. Reading and ironing was one of those impractical ways of managing Brook Farm. Though they did have a novel and radical method of pay, where each man, woman, and child was paid the same amount for each hour worked. Yet even being equally compensated for labor did not provide that satisfaction to the residents, nor assure that the outhouses got cleaned out. There was one person, Annie Salisbury, went to the Brook Farm thinking, if I come here and live, I'll be able to become a writer. However, she found she was too tired at the end of the day to do any writing. And after 5 months, she left writing. Oh, labor is the curse of the world. And nobody can meddle with it without becoming proportionally brutified. Brook Farm had many ministers, writers, and educators who helped develop its one soul and saving enterprise, which was to educate its own children and the children of the skilled workers and laborers in the area. And that has contributed to the belief and the standard that has marked Unitarianism to this day, which is the belief that all children are capable of intellectual and spiritual accomplishments, regardless of class or race. Now, social education as a way to do unto others and to transform social ills continues to be one of the most prominent ways that Unitarian Universalists function. Brook Farm was a failed experiment in building a utopian community. And it failed in part because Ripley lacked the skills necessary to assure the economic success of the community. Yet his dream of ending capitalism and of heralding equal rights for all, ending slavery, and removing class distinctions were all very worthy goals. However, the community declined, and Reverend Nanine writes 3 things happened to lead to its final demise. Number 1, the press began to report alleged sexual promiscuity. This appears not to have been true, because the values of family and equality were too high to be so. And I would suspect that the residents were a little too tired and have left any energy for such antics. Second, member of the community came in contact with smallpox, and a third of the community became sick, and work stopped until the contagion was over. And thirdly, in an attempt to rally back, the entire remaining financial resources were put into completing a giant community building, which, still unfinished and not insured, burnt to the ground, leaving the place bankrupt. And bankruptcy proceedings were held in August 1847, spelling an end to the vision of this utopian farm. But primarily the attitude that if you lived there, you could do what you wanted, when you wanted, because it pleased you or not, left the farm untenable. The failure to understand the need to care for an entire community over individual needs, wants, and desires of the individual crippled the community. Sound familiar? Yet we must not dismiss the underlying desire to address the issues of the day, of fair and equitable pay, equal economic opportunity, educational opportunities for all, and bringing about the end of slavery and oppression continued and continue to be a foundation of our Unitarian Universalist social justice work. And now, since the time of Brook Farm, we have learned how to be more effective in our undertakings of social responsibility. And the underpinning value is always doing unto others, treating others with respect and with dignity, and with recognizing their unique potential to give to the world, to make it a better, more harmonious place, and doing this work in relationship, being allies with, in connection with, that serve more than an individual's desires and wants. I doubt that there will be any more utopian, Unitarian, Universalist, communal societies, but we will be continuing to find ways to bring our unique ideals to all those social projects we are engaged in, both individually and as a congregation. And that is the spiritual task. That is the spiritual task. To become successful in social justice, action, and services, we must be joined with others, intentionally building and transforming and forging connections beyond our individuality, and being willing to labor for the entire community, even if we might not like cleaning out the stalls. May it be so. And we have for our closing hymn, the lyrics will be on the projector. It's 301. Please join with me as we extinguish the chalice. We extinguish this flame. Our service has ended, but not our time of being service to the larger world. Go and be blessed and be a blessing unto others. Please sit now and enjoy this postlude from Tom, and then we'll have a time of gathering before discussion of the preliminary budget. Thank you all for worshiping with us this morning.
Please join me in wishing Joni Cutter a happy 80th birthday.